Thank you. Thanks. That was Nathan, I think, right? Thank you. Or that was Joe. Possibly Joe.
Yeah, that was Joe.
Possibly Joe. All right. Okay. I don't have enough room to see everything. That's what I'm realizing. Goodness gracious. There we go. Okay. We're coming to the end of this week of creating pieces and listening to a lot of music. And I wanted to at least start bringing us around to the next stage of generating a lot of stuff, coming up with stuff on the DAW and getting to know how to capture the sounds that we want. But also it's an opportunity for us to finish notation if we got any. And now we're in the part of the process where we're starting to judge what we've got, what we could do to make it better. And we're going to develop a little bit of a practice that allows us to do that. So the purpose, there we go. I've said the purpose of this interactive lab is to become more articulate and self-aware about our preferred processes of judging our own music and accurately and thoroughly doing it. Let me say that again, and maybe this time I'll do it better. This purpose of this interactive lab is to become more articulate and more self-aware about your preferred processes of judging your own music accurately and thoroughly. I think when we're in the process of creating stuff and generating stuff, we're just happy to have something on the page. This is about, let me say this one more time. The purpose is to become more articulate and self-aware about our preferred processes of judging your own music accurately and thoroughly. Now, I say processes because there's many processes to use, but they all sort of fall under the general rubric of analysis. And you're making noticing some things as you go along. And we're going to develop together a little bit of a rubric that lets us go through a process. And then you get to choose which parts of that process you want to keep. Becoming more articulate. What do we mean by articulate? Does anybody render an idea of what that means? Come up with a definition, an idea?
Well, I might not be very articulate about this, but it's like knowing exactly what you want, like kind of like not knowing exactly what you want, but like kind of saying it in the right, like the exact right way.
Anybody else?
Clarity.
Clarity. Thank
Fluency.
you. Fluency. Good.
Being able to say what you mean very specifically and clearly.
Yes. Yes, Sandra. I agree. That's great. Max, do you have any ideas? Or Nathan?
Kind of like the more articulate you are, the less room for misinterpretation there is.
Oh, that's an interesting insight. Really good.
Like being able to turn your thoughts into words so that you can communicate them effectively.
I think thoughts are it's really the important part of that. Sometimes you can be articulate in sign language or expressions visually, but being articulate is what you're thinking is what you're trying to communicate, and being as clear and accurate as you possibly can. Those are all great ideas. Now, we're trying to get articulate and more self-aware. We could be articulate and not be particularly self-aware. We're trying to do both of those things. What does self-aware generate in your mind about what does it mean to be self-aware?
To be able to wait,
go ahead,
AJ, you go.
Xander, go ahead.
Okay. To be able to see yourself clearly how other people might see you, or to understand things, or maybe to understand things about yourself that other people might not. Just having an accurate idea of things about yourself.
That's brilliant. That's right. Any other ideas about being I like the idea that you said, Sanders, that seeing yourself as someone outside of yourself seeing yourself as others see you, and then also having insights that only you could have about your inside thoughts. Anyone else have any ideas? Xander, you nailed it, I guess. And more articulate, more self-aware about your preferred processes, I should say, of judging your own music accurately and thoroughly. Now, process of judging. Anybody have an idea of what you judge all the time, whether you're aware of it or not? That may be self-awareness of issue. Maybe you're not really articulate about it, but you probably are making judgments and you're using a process to make that judgment. Give me an example of things that you have judged today.
I was practicing my viola and there were definitely lots of judgments there.
Got it. Yep. Any others? No one's making any judgments today?
Judging my composition.
Yeah. Yep. And you know the process you're using.
Seeing if it sounds good or not.
That's always that's my rule of thumb. If I like the way it sounds, it must be good. Anyone else?
This isn't necessarily today, but just in like mixing and mastering, that's always like the strongest moment of judgment for any of my compositions.
So you mean listening to it in a recording, for example?
Yeah, and then like figuring out balance, figuring out EQ, getting everything to work together, and just, I don't know, there's a huge strive for like the perfect balance there.
Yeah, that's true. And balance both the volume and all the parameters of sound. Anyone else have any judgments that they've used? They've been judging anything today besides viola, your own compositions? What you're gonna eat for Tim, go ahead, and then Alexander.
Okay.
Tim, go ahead.
So I was judging myself as I was practicing the piano today because I have a competition that I need that's gonna happen in a little bit, and I'm kind of getting stressed out.
I understand that. It can never be good enough, really. Xander, you had something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been having some struggles. Like when you were like, when you said you might not be articulate or self-aware about it, but you're probably judging yourself. I was like, oh, that's true, because I've been struggling a lot in the past like day or two or whatever with like my piece and with like how to do it, just feeling discouraged, feeling frustrated, feeling like it's not going to be good enough. I don't know how to do this good enough. And so I guess you saying that was like, oh, what are the judgments I'm making? So I don't know if I know exactly specifically what they are, but I really appreciate you bringing my attention to this subject.
And maybe, ironically, it makes you more self-aware. In fact, maybe, we'll see. We're going to work on that specifically today, Xander. We're going to give you some processes. This lab is called Judgmental Ears. Yeah, the great thing about being self-judgmental is that you are the only one involved, and you can't claim anybody's passing judgment on you. You're frequently your own most severe judge, and can be frequently, as Xander said, discouraged, because when you're only looking at yourself and you're trying your best and it's still not coming up to meet your standards. What do you do? How are you going to become better if you're using your best skills to get what you want and it's still not there? Now, the title of this lab is called Judgmental Ears, to be self-aware how you are making judgments of what you are doing and what you hear. It is not called judgmental eyes or judgmental ears and judgmental eyes. Eyes have a way of influencing what we hear. Sometimes it misinforms our ears. What we see on the DAW screen or in the score, it misinforms what actually is happening. It oftentimes fools our ears into hearing our music incorrectly or not the way others hear it. You're going to be better able to use your judgment in more self-aware and articulate ways through a process that we're going to establish together today. Now, the person I'm basing this on is my model. Needs to be somebody that is has this kind of rationality, rational skepticism, and passionate artistry. Does anybody know this guy's name?
No, but his face looks amazing.
I thought this was a fantastically smirky look on this guy's face. It really, he looks self-satisfied and all-knowing at the same time. He thinks he's all-knowing. But there's something very interesting about this man. His name is Voltaire. Francois-Marie Arouet was his born name. He was born in Paris. Now think about this. What was happening in 1694? It's not anything specific that was happening that year, but 1694, before the United States was a country or even a colony, stuff was happening in 1694, and he was in France, Paris. He was sent to study at one of the best schools in Paris by his wealthy father. He says it was the best school in Paris. And the young Arouet changed his name right after he got out of the house and went to school. He lived there. He called himself Voltaire. That was not his born name. That was his assumed name. And it wasn't first name Voltaire or last name Voltaire. It was like Jay-Z or Liberace or a number of other artists who just come up with a single name for themselves. The name is a variation on his sister's nickname for him. It was called Le Petit Volontaire, which means in French, the determined little thing. His cultural influence has no equivalent in today's terms. Not Kanye West, no one has the cultural significance he had at the time. He was such a culturally significant figure that in the 18th century, that time, that era was referred to in historical terms as the Age of Reason or the Age of Enlightenment. And sometimes even in that time, by other people, it was called the Age of Voltaire. We don't have somebody like that. Obama, maybe. Trump, maybe, but not really. He was a poet, he was a playwright, he was an essayist, and he became a political figure by what influence he had in the world. And he was primarily influential in France and in England. The Age of Enlightenment includes a range of ideas centered, and he embodies this, centered on a sovereignty of reason and the evidence of the senses as the primary sources of knowledge. Reason and our senses, perception of what's going on. We have 5 senses, and he used those and thinking about it, and that is the primary source of knowledge, and it advanced ideals at the time that are still living today. The ideals such as liberty, or that was not so obvious then before him, progress, the idea that things can get better, toleration of others. That's very much something going on right now. Fraternity or brotherhood, meaning that we're all part of a family of man, and the constitutional government was something that he supported, which was before many countries had a constitutional government that limited the powers of the government to do things. And he believed in the separation of church and state. So this is inspired in some ways by the spirit of this very interesting man, Voltaire, with the smirk on his face, judgmental ears. And he was attributed with a quote that is not really his. He was quoting an old Italian saying that said, "The perfect is the enemy of the good." And Nathan, I could not be happier that you brought that up about your piece, about perfection and striving for it and not always getting there. So what is perfect and what is good? And actually, Tim, you were talking about that as well for your competition. Who gets to decide this idea of what is perfect and what is good? Let's not get too philosophical about ethics or aesthetics. We only have about a couple of hours to do this, and we're trying to learn, first of all and foremost, how to be articulate, self-aware about our process of judging, or processes of judging, because there's not going to be one. There was a composer, singer, pop artist, jazz singer, composer, conductor, also a producer, band leader named Bobby McFerrin. I don't know if any of you, does anyone know who Bobby McFerrin is? Is it first of all? Tim does, Eric does, anybody else? You should check out Don't Worry, Be Happy. That's a song that Bobby McFerrin improvised. And he became an artistic associate at the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra and got to know him personally when he was here. We shared the stage a couple of times. His daycare was the same one that Ben went to when he was living here for his son. And we got to talking about this idea of ear music and paper music. He interprets music as ear and paper music. He thinks of it as two different separate kinds of music. I want you to think about your own creative project this week. Just take a second. Think, you may have an inkling of the process you use to generate your music. We've been doing that now for a few days. Did you start with the bass or the rhythm or the melody or one of the instruments? Did you improvise on an instrument or did you begin by noodling around on your DAW? Now try to think how you began earlier this week. It's not that long ago. How did you get that first idea, that very, very first seed or jot or tittle of a little idea in your imagination? Did you hear something in your head that you wanted to capture? Now, AJ is going to have to remember back further than Monday, but where did you get this idea? Did you get it from an app or a recording of somebody else's music? Or did you just start playing your instrument and saw what was going to come out of it? Or did you start writing notes on a page without ever having any sound and you just heard something in your head? Could you guys start talking about this? Where did you get your first idea about the piece you're doing this week? The very first idea.
I got it from Sarah Miller's discussion on texture.
So you were inspired by an idea, and then what did you do?
I developed the idea.
What did you start on the piano?
No, I kind of had something in my head.
You
So
did.
then
You
I
heard something in your
wrote it down
ear.
on MuseScore. Yeah.
Got it. And then you wrote it on MuseScore.
Yes.
Joe, what did you do?
I heard something in my head and then I wrote it on MuseScore.
Got it. Xander?
Huh? Sorry, what are you saying?
How did you first get your idea? The very first, before anything was there, what was the thing that started you on this idea that you're working on this week? And it may not have started this week, but the piece you're working on this week, where did you first get the idea, the first seed of an idea?
Oh, like, do you mean was I listening to a song and did that inspire me, or how did I record the idea?
No, not how you recorded it. What generated that idea? Was it another song? Was it doodling around on the piano, or?
It was doodling around on the piano, and it was loosely inspired by it's inspired by the chord progression of another song that I like that has a similar vibe, as well as an earlier version of the song that I was coming up with a while ago.
Got it. That's great. That's helpful. AJ, what about you?
I don't remember how specifically for this movement I did it. I think I came up with it at the keyboard.
At the keyboard, and you were just improvising?
Yeah.
Were you doing the bass and the melody?
No, just melody.
Just the melody.
Just melody.
Just the right hand.
Because I knew it had to have a strong melody to end the piece.
Uh-huh. And did you sing?
Unfortunately, yes.
Well, I think the croaking that composers do, songwriters do, is one of the secret weapons of music. Just singing, even if it's words or just the melody, just singing is like working on a keyboard or your instrument, but it's almost unburdened from any of the technique that you'd have to do. So that's a time-worn approach, starting with just singing. Max, how did you
My
start?
cat used to
Oh.
like go crazy when I sang.
Meryl Lee goes crazy when I sing. That's not my cat, that's my wife. Max, what do you say?
I kind of started with the chords and then tried to add like interesting rhythms to that, like on the piano, just messing around.
Somewhat like Xander, that you had chords and then that sort of invited other things that you layered on. But the first start was chords. Were you copying some other chord changes that other songs were doing, or did you just start blank?
I mean, it just not really.
Well, because we're taking lessons, I think one of the things you told me that I heard you saying was you wanted to do chords and you knew you were going to start in a tonic. And then you get from there, it's like a pinball machine. Do you want to go a pinball game? Do you want to go to 2? Do you want to go to the 4 chord? Do you want to go to the 5 chord? Do you want to go to 5/7 chord? Do you want to start on a 6 chord? Do you want to go to the 3 chord? There's a bunch of choices, but you started with a chord and then followed some pattern that followed after that. Yes?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think I was
Nathan.
kind of building that as I was going along instead of having that like pre-planned.
Yep. Totally got it. And Nathan, so goofing off the piano, that's good. Nathan, what did you do?
Yeah, I also kind of goofed off. I made this like fake guitar on my DAW that sounds a lot like a really well distorted guitar. I just put some effects and whatever on a clavichord.
Yep.
And so since I don't really know how to play guitar that well, I kind of just did some things on the piano and eventually just landed on this rhythm and chords. And
So in some ways, wouldn't you say, Nathan, all of you, that we sort of use somewhat the same ideas, and it's sort of mysterious. It's not entirely planned. We may have a plan to get started, but to generate ideas, we start a little bit and put a big toe in the water, and then things unfold as we go. All right. Well, it is sort of miraculous. The many different ways, but also the many similar ways that we start making music. Think for another minute right now. How was your music first captured or notated? Think for a minute, and you probably have the answer right now. It's not a very long answer, but I'll start backwards. Nathan, could you tell us how you started first getting the thing that you say, okay, now it's captured. I know sort of the general idea.
I mean, I kind of found, I don't know, not found, it wasn't like a intentional process, but I kind of just like figured out songs that it was similar to. And that
No, I'm talking about how you captured that song, how you finally said, that's what I'm working on right now. Not how you modeled it later or discovered in the process, but how did you first affix that idea so that you said, that's my idea right there?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm not sure if I did. I was kind of just floating. I have this like very, very large file on my computer that just has a bunch of ideas saved, and yeah.
And how are
I
they
was
saved?
struck by they're all in just a DAW. I have them recorded.
That's how you captured them.
Yeah.
You're capturing them on a DAW. That's exactly it. And Xander, are you next? Yeah, Xander, how do you first capture? How did you put it down in some place where you could go back and revisit it?
Well, I just came up with an idea, and so I just turned on my iPod and started recording and improvised something, and that's what I'm currently working with.
So it was a recording, but not on DAW.
Yeah.
It was a recording.
No,
Cool.
just on
AJ?
my.
Yeah, AJ, what about you?
Okay, once I had the melody in a place where I could sing it all the way through and remember it, I notated it.
So memory. Memory was the first place you fixed it.
Yeah.
And Xander,
Same
you're
here.
nodding. Nodding. Does that mean you agree with that approach too?
Sorry, what did you say?
I mean, AJ just said she just memorized it and then she started notating it. Did you get an idea of it and then you memorized that thing that you were doing at the piano and then you started fixing it down in a format?
No, I did, like I said, like with this one specifically, I did loose improvisation. And I memorized a little bit of it, but not like the whole thing. Most of it I would have forgotten if I didn't have it recorded.
Awesome. That's really helpful. Max, how did you first capture your idea?
I mean, kind of similar. So like once I had something that I kind of liked, I played it a little bit more to, I guess, solidify the idea. And then once I had, even if this wasn't like perfect or whatever, I would just record that and come back to it later.
So you were able to sort of short-term memory of the song, and then how did you capture it after you sort of played it? Did you write it down? Did you?
I just recorded it.
You
on
recorded
my
it.
phone.
Great. And did you record it like Xander did? You just turn on some sort of recording device and play
Yeah.
acoustically? Got it. Joe, how about you?
I did it kind of like AJ, and I thought about it in my head, and once I had it down, I wrote it down on my software.
Interesting. So the notation software.
Yes.
And in your head, you sort of memorized the sound or the melody. Was it a melody that you were writing?
Yes.
Got it. All right, good. And Tim, how did you capture that idea the first time? Did you memorize it? Did you record it? What were you doing? You said you were starting noodling.
Wait, what do you mean? Wait, when I started my new piece? Sorry,
Yes.
I got distracted.
That's fine. You were we're talking about how we capture the music. When we have that idea, you were noodling on the piano. How did you then finally get it in a place where you said, okay, that's the piece, and you were able to come back to it and say, oh, that's the piece. Did you record it? Did you do it on a DAW? Did you
Well, I
just
didn't-
memorize it in your heart?
I didn't write it on the piano.
Where did you write it?
Well, I just kind of got it from my head and then I put it into MuseScore.
So from your head, you put it in a MuseScore. That's how you captured it first time.
Mhm, yeah.
You say, okay, that's good. I think it's important for us right away to think about where do your ideas come from, and specifically this piece that you're working on. It's going to be different. Each piece is going to be different, but to establish a practice, you have to become aware of who you are and what you're doing. That's the self-aware part. And being able to say specifically what you're doing is being articulate. These are two steps in what we're trying to get done today. And the last step is the processes of judging how accurate or how pleasing it is if it actually fully realizes your idea at the very beginning. All right. So generating it and capturing it. And memorizing the music was one way, recording was one way, DAW was one way, notation was one way. But these are all further down in the process. First of all, you have to generate the idea, then you have to capture it, and then you get to work on it. So you've been working on it now for, I don't know, something in AJ's position, months that she's been working on this. And some people who just captured that idea Sunday night or Saturday, that's a very short term, but you had to go through these processes of generating it, capturing it, and working on it. And you've been working on it for this week. Why is all this important? Because how you generate and then capture your music can help you in the process of judging and improving your music before sharing it with a wider public. You can't get it better until you know what you did to get to where you are now. You have to know how you generated it and how you captured it, because both of those steps influence what you're going to be sharing. And if you get stuck, knowing how you got to where you are is very, very helpful. And being self-aware of yourself is really critical. This is not just true in making music. It's important in all things to be self-aware and articulate about what's going on with you. Remembering your process speeds your process of improving. Where do you fit? Are you an ear music composer or a paper music composer? The division between ear and paper seems so different from each other, don't they? Or are we just encouraged to think that they are completely different things? They're the composers who write by ear and those who write down on paper. I want to ask you a question. You don't have to tell me, but I want to know if you, thinking about your own experience, have gained fluency this week in capturing your music using an ear approach of some sort. And I've not defined what's an ear approach, but an ear approach in your mind, you get to decide. If you became more fluent in using the ear approach, give me a sign, a thumbs up. Anybody? Joe is. Anybody else? Yeah, Xander's maybe.
I don't usually, I can't usually like, I don't necessarily usually like come up with like stuff in my head, but sometimes if I'm working on a piece and I'm really going on it, I'm on a roll, like I will continue thinking about it after I'm done, and I will think and I will compose more bits of it in my head, and then go and quickly figure it out on the piano, and sometimes it just works, which
And
is
capture it.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't define for you what ear music approach is, nor did I define to you paper approach, although they're both implied in the way that Bobby McFerrin divided the two approaches. Have you gained any fluence personally this week in capturing your music using a paper approach? Now, I haven't defined what a paper approach is, but have you gained any fluency in your mind this week in becoming more capable of using the approach that a paper composer might use? Yep. Joe, Xander? Yes, you put a thumbs up. Thank you. Oh, that was Max. Sorry. Because I only see both. I can only see the top half of your heads, both of you. So I'm mistaken it. What about you, Nathan or Tim?
I mean, personally, I cannot do paper music. I don't
That's
know why.
fine.
There's just
Doesn't matter.
I can't visually interpret music at all.
Well, we'll talk about that. That would be an eye experience, a judgmental eye.
I've honestly kind of been in the middle because this week I've been improvising a lot.
Yeah.
And I've been composing on paper a lot.
Well, you can see that I'm putting ear music by paper composers, maybe an example of what you're experiencing, Tim. You're trying to write ear music, but you're used to writing things down in notation. And I'm wondering if Joe would be an example of a paper music, but you might be somebody who might be considered an ear composer. I don't know. You'll have to judge for yourself. Are you an ear composer learning to use paper better this week, or a paper composer learning to use ear approaches this week?
Probably paper using ear this week.
Cool. Anybody else have a comment?
Well, I'm usually, because I kind of started off composing music kind of like ear into paper, because like when I was really young, I would make up a whole bunch of tiny little 1-minute pieces, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's so cool, I should write it down. And then when I did, I'm like, this is so much work.
It is. It is. Must we all use different approaches, making our music sound better? And Nathan just said no. I think you very clearly said, no, I can't work in paper. I have to work in some other form, in ear approaches. Is that correct? Nathan? Yeah, Eric.
I feel like they both definitely have their benefits. And I think switching back and forth between them for certain, in different roles, is extremely useful. So I found myself, I'm definitely an ear person. That's how I started out. That's like what I am. But I'm coming to see the benefits of paper a lot more.
Can you give me an example from your own experience?
I mean, I just got more interested in instrumental music and classical music, and development is difficult by ear because I would just come up with a song and then just memorize it and play it, and I'm like, that sounds good.
And the melody would just be repeated in different, maybe with different accompaniment, but just be repeated.
Right. I mean, it would develop in a way, but it was not like polyphony. It was just like a melody and some chords moving along. So
Yep.
I think paper music, when you're coming up with I don't know, it helps with specifics for
Are
sure.
you, Eric, do you feel like, and I've asked all of you to think this question, are there some similar approaches that making music sound better can be, that both paper and ear music use, that you go back and forth? It sounded like Tim, for example, was saying, you know, I'm doing more ear stuff now, but when I was young, I did a lot of ear stuff and then I'd write it down. It's a lot of work, but there's a bit of something that you have to take when you start becoming more fluent in both approaches. You start using your approach, the true approach that you have, and using different ways to express what you're making. You sometimes use paper, sometimes use ear, and you go back and forth, which is what Eric was just talking about. But there are some things about what you make, what Eric makes, what AJ makes, what Xander makes, that Tim makes, that Nathan makes, that Max makes, and that Joe makes, that are uniquely you, no matter how, whatever technology, whatever approach between paper and ear, it's you. It's your head, it's your ear, it's your approach. And to become self-aware of what your approaches are and become more fluent in those approaches are a way to make your music better. So you're already actually making your music better from what it was about a week ago on a Thursday night. Let's say Thanksgiving night. You've gotten more fluent and actually gotten more experienced working in different styles and thinking differently about your music. So I want you to take some minutes, some notes. So I need either you to take a computer document, word processing, or I'd like you to get out a piece of paper. And I would actually prefer it if you used a paper. Get a piece of paper for a second, because we're going to take some notes in the next few minutes. Or we're going to be making lists, for example. I would like to have people, well, I'm going to wait until you get paper. It looks like AJ is going to have to go fetch paper. I don't know what Xander's up to. But if you have paper, please get that paper out. Now, I've got paper right here. And here's my pen. So take a second to get paper. I'd like to see a show of hands now, a definitive show of hands. You have to make a decision now, whether you're a paper composer or an ear composer. Could you raise your hand if you're a paper composer? And I am. I'm just going to say I'm going to be a paper composer. I can't see Tim and I can't see Xander, so I can't see if your hands are up.
Sorry, what's the question?
Are you an ear composer or a paper composer? If you're a paper composer, raise your hand. Now, how do you do that, Joe?
It's in the reactions at the bottom.
At the bottom
of your Zoom window.
Not that I can see, but oh yeah. Here it is. Reactions, captions, pointer, notes, Q&A, tips. Yeah, I don't see it.
I think that's your
that's your
slideshow.
Yeah, that's your slideshow.
That's my slideshow. Well, let's see.
You need to go to your Zoom.
Oh God. Well,
you'd have to like unscreen share.
Yeah, I'd have to unscreen it. I don't have it. But I'd like to see, Joe, you're saying you are a paper? Max, are you paper or ear?
I think ear.
Ear, got it. AJ, what are you?
Paper.
Paper. Nathan?
Ear.
Ear, definitely. Eric, ear, right? Tim, you? What do you say?
Yes,
Yes, which one?
both.
No, pick one.
Gosh.
Xander, you too. Paper or ear?
What's the difference again? I'm
I
sorry,
would
I'm having a really hard time
mainly
paying
have to say
attention today.
paper.
Say Tim.
I'd mainly have to say paper.
Okay.
like 5149.
So
Like what? So I'm sorry. What's the difference again? I've been having a really hard time paying attention today. I'm really sorry.
it's okay. Could somebody sort of take over? And I mean, I'm trying to think, how do I rewind what my thought process is? Ear composers use a variety of things that don't use papers. Maybe the way I like to think of it that way, because I'm a paper composer. Paper composers, I put notes on the page.
Does that
Ear-
include Does that include notation software like MuseScore?
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And if you are primarily an ear composer, you're maybe singing into things. You're singing. You're recording the singing. You're using DAW. You're doing anything else besides putting it on the page. This is about maybe how we capture music. What would you say?
I guess I would say I don't know. I think I've been a paper composer for a long time, I guess you could say, and now I'm trying to get more into doing stuff with DAWs and stuff. I think I'm more a paper composer at heart, kind of. At least, I guess that's kind of how I think about things.
Yep.
Except the thing is, even when I'm using like notation, I'm not thinking about most of the time. I'm not thinking about it in terms of how the person's going to play it, because usually I'm not trying to make anyone play it, just trying to make a sound. So I don't know. Maybe this is a false dichotomy, Randall.
Yes, it is. I actually started saying that early on. And just for the purposes of our discussion right now, you have to choose. You could choose either one. And just for the discussion, let's just call you a paper composer. Is that okay? Okay. What I'd like to do is start with the paper composers to list some of the parameters of sound that you use when you're composing. Paper composers, write down the parameters of sound. That means, for example, tempo. Write them down quickly. It doesn't have to be comprehensive. It just needs to be something on a list. And we're all going to sort of build this list together. Or actually, I'm going to have somebody be the scribe on this, because I can't figure out how to add things to the Google Doc while I'm displaying the Google Doc. So we'll do this together. Some parameters of sound. Here are a couple of things. Some of the paper music terms used to describe fast and slow, for instance. The italicized words on the right of that are words that are used in paper music, but there are even more paper terms to describe those things. So share some of your terms, Italian, French, German, but one of those is fast or slow. Is that correct? What are the other parameters I've got up here? Could somebody read it to me? I'll wait.
Register, timbre, melody, articulation, dynamics, texture, and harmony.
And here's the thing that is interesting. There's the quality of the sounds. These are the polarities. The fast and slow is a polarity. High and low, dark and bright. They are given terms in paper music that we consider are the parameters of music. But these are paper descriptions of things, and they really are describing qualities. What the speed of music is, it could be fast and slow, or the register, that it's all of the high notes or all low notes, or sometimes they're in between, but it gives you a range. And the same thing is true for timbre, really dark tones and really bright tones. And melody can have a very stepwise movement or more of a leapy thing, etc. So if you could write these terms down on your piece of paper, that would be helpful. And we'll keep going. Okay, ear composers, what terms do we use in making our music? Are they terms that come from our DAWs or ear composers? I'm asking the ear composers. So Nathan, Eric, and Max, are the ear composers that are saying, I'll be an ear composer. What terms do we use in making our music? Are they terms that come from our DAWs, for example? Write those down now. Take a moment before you start sharing, we'll start sharing those terms. I can't make these additions to the slide so easily, and these terms are meant for you in any case. So take notes. But here are some additional parameters of sound to consider as you develop your list of ear music terms. For want of a better term, I'm putting down forms, song forms. Now there are forms in classical music, but when we talk about verse, chorus, that's a form that you guys frequently are talking about, more frequently than composers who are writing paper music. And I would say songwriters who write paper music as well. Texture, as Sarah taught us, and as Tim is trying to demonstrate in his quintet, embellishing notes is not one of the things we talked about. What about envelopes? Does anyone have a description or a definition of what a sound envelope is? Eric, I'm counting on you.
Oh man.
I can shoot.
It's like how it's like how the sound opens up.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it.
There's an ADSR, are the abbreviations for an envelope of sound, which if you go like this, or if you play it on a dulcimer, or if you play it on a tuba, there's an ADSR: attack, decay, sustain, and release. That's the envelope. And oftentimes in electronics, you can get really tweaky about how much of an attack you have. You can have a very slow attack and then a very long decay going to a sustain that's very soft, and then a very quick release. You can tweak this in time in many, many different ways, so much so that it no longer sounds like the instrument that you think it was generated by. So that an ADSR is the parts of an envelope. Attack, decay, sustain, release, ADSR. All right. Now we're going to get a little bit further on. There's one parameter that I've not talked about. We've already noticed one of the parameters, but we've not really talked about it very much. It's this parameter. Can you see it? What about now? This parameter. Originally, this lab was going to be about rhythm. That's all I was going to talk about. It'd be from Messiaen's toolbox of rhythms. In one sense, we all use the same input notation on rhythm, whether we're composing paper or DAW. You'll see on the screen when you're putting in notes, is it a quarter note that you're using? Is there a dotted eighth note? Is a 16th note, a dotted half note? That's one of the ways that we can talk about rhythm between all of us, both ear composers and ear composers and paper composers. But we don't have easy language to describe the polarities of rhythm, like we did fast and slow or dark and bright. It's hard to describe what the polarities, the extremes of that parameter called rhythm. We could talk about mixed meter. We could talk about cross rhythms, which is
Uh-oh.
organized sound in time. And rhythm.
Randall, you were out for like 20 seconds.
Okay.
Just so
I'm
you
not
know.
sure why. I'm not sure why. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. I was just going to say we notate rhythms across the span of ear composers and paper composers. Dotted eighth notes, all of the rhythms that you can put in, you can enter these notes one at a time. But we don't have an easy language to describe the polarities of rhythm. We could talk about mixed meter, or cross rhythms would be a good topic too. Irrational rhythms and triplets or septuplets are possible. Now I've got another person coming in. Hold on a second. Oh, here's Nora right here. Hey, Nora, we're talking about rhythm for a little bit. We'll catch up here in a second. But that only scratches the surface because rhythm permeates every parameter of music. If you remember, the definition of music is OST, organized sound in time, and rhythm happens in time. It is an elemental force. It spans every genre of sound art and every parameter of sound. Rhythm is a complicated topic and would take many labs to teach. And that's not the subject of this lab. We're talking about being articulate and self-aware about our judging processes about our own music. Rhythm happens in time. Oh, I already said this, yeah. But we're talking about being articulate and self-aware about our preferred processes of judging our music accurately and thoroughly. Let's just say we'll be dealing with rhythm at future COIs in more depth. So here's where we begin analyzing each other's creative projects. And because you got paper out, this will be helpful. We'll now be practicing being articulate and self-aware right now. We will use our own written down parameters of sound we talked about, and our preferred processes of judging. I'm emailing you a list right now, a checklist that we talked about. Let me get that sent to you. Okay, here we go. Oh, that's the opportunity. Hold on a second. I've got an opportunity for you guys. A commission has come up just today for everybody in this group. But I'll send that at the end of the session. Here's the email, and it's coming to you right now. We're going to use this checklist and any other ideas that you have to put on that checklist. And we're going to look at each piece that we're going to listen to now. And we're going to have a chance to listen to each of us, each of our creative projects as they stand right now. It might not be done. That's okay. We're going to give some feedback. Remember what I said we'd be doing now for about 45 minutes. The goal is to use our judgmental ears. We're going to become more effective. We'll share the screen for each of our pieces and show and play our music, whether it's on a DAW or whether it's in notation, doesn't matter. We will share our observations, each of us sharing our observation using the checklist I just sent to you. We will use our ears and our eyes, seeing and listening to the music. Even if it's a DAW, we'll be seeing the DAW flow through us. And ultimately, you are the judge, not each other, but of yourself, of your own creative projects. Any observations we have are meant to give you additional perspectives. We have your back. They are not judgments about good or bad. We are establishing your practice of your preferred parameters of sound when you analyze your own piece. That makes sense? This is called Judgmental Ears. And we're going to take a short break right now. And during that short break, Nora, you and I can talk and I'll bring you up to speed on where we are. Let's take, it's been an hour and 5 minutes. We'll be doing the judging and the analyzing of each other's music in about 5 minutes. We'll start up. So please take a break. And Nora. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I was just teaching. That's why I'm late.
That's fine. We went over a bunch of stuff about the process we're using. We talked about the parameters of sound. I just sent you an email, and we're going to use that sort of checklist, or there may be other ideas that people add, and we'll talk about those other parameters or other categories of judgment we should pass on or pass on our own pieces. And we're going to be sharing observations about each other's piece.
Okay.
And this process is really, as we're on a Thursday and we're going to be done on Saturday or Sunday, we're coming to that point in the process where we generated ideas Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We started capturing it and notating it whatever way we wanted to, whether it was on a DAW or software. And now we're at the point that it's saying, okay, now here's where we are. What have I got? And how do I make it better? How do I make it improve it in some ways? And then we're going to move forward and then make it something that we can show and tell. And this is that first step right now of showing and telling what we have, whatever it is. I know not everybody's done, and that's okay. All right, I'm gonna go get some water. I don't know about you. I'll be right back. Hey, Nora, are you still there? No, she's getting water too. Have you been in school every day, Tim, this week?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Are you tired?
No, not really.
Okay, good. What time did you get started?
Like, what do you mean? Like, when do I go to school?
Yeah.
Well, I leave home at about like 7:10, and then I get home at about 3:30.
Did you take a nap today?
No.
Oh man. All right, Nathan's back. Max, AJ, I think Nora's here, Xander, Joe. I would like to alternate as much as possible. I wish Eric would come back so that we could use him as well. But let's say I think we have more paper. So what paper composer would like to go first? Hello. So Nora, you need to pull up your project wherever you are, and wherever you are in the process.
Okay.
Hey Max, you're an ear composer, that's right. AJ is a paper composer. AJ, are you there? And Xander, did you say you were a paper composer?
I don't know. I guess so.
Are we counting used score as paper?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Xander, would you mind going first?
For what again?
Play back the piece that you've been working on, just for wherever it is right now. Just play it back, and we're going to use this form that I just emailed to you just a few minutes ago. And we're going to sort of look at the parameters of sound and sort of start analyzing what we hear and sharing feedback and what we observe about your piece in whatever form it is. If you've got it in a DAW and don't have it in notation, that's fine. That's
okay. Yeah. I have it in a DAW currently.
That's great. Do you have a paper score? I mean, a notated score as well?
No, I don't right now.
That's fine.
I will soon enough.
Here, let me give you the permission to share. I don't know if you need that.
No, I don't think
No.
so.
All participants can share.
Okay.
So let's listen to your piece. And guys, before he starts, I want you to get the form that I sent to you. You either can do this on the email or the PDF that I sent you, or you can print it out and write notes. I printed mine out and I'm going to use notes. So the first one we're going to be listening to is Xander, and he would be number one. And then I'm just going to be listening to all of these parameters of sound and maybe some more that we come up with as we go. Xander, is everybody ready to listen? Just thumbs up.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sharing my computer sound. You can rate your stuff, and you can write your thoughts or whatever in the chat if you want.
Great.
But anyway, yeah. So this is my thing. I'm writing this for a very specific purpose. I'm I'm writing a film score. If you were here during the summer, you would have seen the first part of, or you would have seen the scene that I scored then. I'm not going to be showing you guys the scene right now, so you're not going to be able to see the whole effect of like what I'm writing this for, but hopefully this could still be a decent exercise.
Hey, Xander, could you describe what the scene is that we're going to be listening to? What happens?
Okay, so what's happening is there's this guy, the main character, who like takes a drink from something from like a drink at a bar, and then sort of goes like, whoa, and he like turns around, and then he sees at like a booth in the bar, he sees himself and sitting in front of a woman, and they're like meeting to, I don't know, and like they like like sort of try and interact with each other, but it's like clearly like they're like something's wrong between them.
Okay.
And it's like sad, and it ends up being like a breakup.
Got it. Could we see more of the screen of the DAW, or is this all we can see?
What do you mean? How much can you see?
I can see. Oh, maybe I can get small. I can make my image go 50%, and that'll help me. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks. Is that what you have?
Yeah, I don't have very many. I basically just
That's fine.
have
That's great.
these 3 right now. It's
No
it's
problem.
pretty much. I think it's probably not going to have a ton of instruments in it in general. And it's going to have these. It's probably going to have strings. It might have bass, and it's possible there may be a violin recorded.
Okay,
It's possible.
that's good. Let's start.
Yep. Okay. Okay. what did you all think?
That's lovely. That's really lovely. I think you guys should turn off your microphones if you can, so we can just get into a conversation quickly. I've got about 2 minutes we can talk, because if you get through this in 45 minutes, you got to keep moving. So please turn off your mic. I think one of the parameters that I would like to add, especially regarding sad songs, is that there's an affect or an emotion that's being communicated. And you really captured, I think, this sad inevitability. Arpeggios did that.
Yeah.
It felt out inevitable, and it felt very sad to me. And I thought, despite the sadness, it was very concordant. The harmonies they weren't dissonant. They weren't crazy. It was there was an inevitability, sadness, and concord. Did anybody else have any thoughts?
Thank you. That really fits what I'm going for the scene. So I really appreciate that. Because that's a lot of what the scene is like.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that stood out to me immediately was that it felt a lot slower than it actually was. So something about the mood of the music made it feel like slow, somber, contemplative.
Yes.
But actually, when I stopped to listen, it was like, wait a second, the tempo is actually kind of fast. So that was very interesting.
Really true. 1, 2, 3, like that. That's not slow. That would be a fast walk. Maybe on Dante, but it's
it's 125 BPM.
Yeah. BPM is a word that we use for tempo. That's what I was thinking of. Trying to think for our songwriters, that's an ear term. Good. Anybody else? Please turn off your mics. Let's talk.
I think something that contributes to the...
Max, I can't hear you.
Nathan's the one that's talking. It's
Nathan.
not Max.
Is that better?
Yes,
yes,
please.
It's better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think something that contributes to the how slow it feels is the spacing of the sections, which I think is very clever, because you have that kind of melody that you hear twice, so it's familiar, but it's kind of, there are these sections where it's just kind of the 2 chords. It's very slow and very somber.
Really, that's an insight that I wasn't clear about. That's really good.
Yeah, and in this section, like right here when the melody cuts out, I was gonna have strings come in here. Not here I have like recorded. I have some MIDI that I recorded from a keyboard. Do we have time for me to play a little bit of this?
No, we don't. No, not really.
All right.
It's not because we don't
fine.
want. It's not that we don't want to. It's that I want to make sure everybody has a chance to play their piece in the time we have allowed.
Okay, great.
I do agree with Nathan that because it's so spaced out, it feels like it's going in a, that's maybe the part of it that was inevitability to it. It feels like, it's going to happen. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And it's not, we can't really get away from it. That's really great.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Max, did you have any comments?
I don't know.
Tim?
I liked it.
You loved it. But based on the parameters we talked about, to establish this idea that we're going to establish a judging process, these parameters start articulating what we're talking about and not just saying, oh, that was awesome. That was fantastic. Yeah, that's good. Let's be articulate about why we like something, especially, or what we might like differently. I think it's consistency of duration of the notes too. You didn't hear, short things and high things and loud things and soft things. It was all of a piece. There were no real extremes in the thing, although it was darker than I think, and the general tone of it was dark. I hope that's what you were looking for.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear, because that is in line with what the scene is like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good to hear. And I do plan to add more to it. Like I said, strings and probably some kind of bass, probably the same sound as this. This is just like an electric piano sound.
Yeah.
And possibly a violin or something.
Terrific.
So
let's go on to the next one. Thank you, Xander. That was really awesome. I'm really excited to hear where this goes from here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Who wants to go next? An ear composer would be good because we had a paper composer, although it was a DAW. Let's hear an ear composer. Nathan, you're nominated.
Let me grab my guitar.
Okay, good. Is this something you've recorded or you're going to play live?
I haven't recorded yet, so this is all.
Got it. That's great. No problema. Or problemo. Problema. Not sure.
Most people say problema because then it rhymes with the word no.
There we go.
All right, let me know if you can hear this all right. All right.
All right, do your mics and let's have some, using the parameters we've talked about, and based on what you've heard, what could you have to say to give some outside perspective for Nathan?
I like the, especially at the beginning when he's starting the verse, where he kind of like at the end of a bar or like the last two beats, he kind of lets the guitar stay and it kind of blends well with the lyrics and just kind of the overall mood of the song.
I agree.
I
I
like
agree.
the. Were you going?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I liked the part where you intersperse the guitar with moments of silence to sort of break up the texture of just the guitar.
You mean jam, jam, like that? Or is that
When
what
he
you're
goes
talking about?
da-da-dum, ba-da-dum.
Oh yeah, got it.
I really liked how simple like the A section was, but then I really like how simple but effective it was. But then I really like sort of the B section, the da 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 da. I really liked that. That was, I don't know, that really made my music. You know, like how you have an organ in your brain that lights up when you hear music that you like. That part of my brain light up.
Thank you.
Now, so is this a rock tune, Nathan?
Yes.
Okay, so this would, if we were saying, what kind of harmony are you using? Rock is
Yeah.
the harmony would you say?
Yes.
Got it.
And I've only been playing guitar since like Sunday, so all I can play is fifths.
That's great. Any other comments?
Yeah, let's see this. I had two thoughts about this. One is that on the list it says like texture, thick or thin, and it's wacky because it's just your voice and the guitar. So you'd think it'd be a thin texture, but the like power of the electric guitar is so intense that it actually feels like a really dense sound, which I thought was really cool. The other thing is your melody, especially in the A section, kind of centers around one note for a long time, kind of goes up and down a little bit, but stays mostly right there, which is like a feature of the genre, of course. But it's always really interesting because I'm like afraid to do that in my music. I feel like if I'm not moving around, it's not interesting. But there are tons of interesting songs that do that, so it's always nice to hear one.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe.
It had a lot of concrete sounds.
Talk about that.
It just was very chord-wise oriented.
Yep. I know that having listened to the Tuesday night, I heard what Brandon's going to be doing, or sort of you talked about that. It's going to add variety that I think is going to be really effective. When you just did what you did just now, of course, it was just you and the guitar, so it was very much the same. I think having a variety of sounds, organ, guitar lead, those things are going to give more variety. That's what I would say right now in the show that you showcased of your song. That's all I really would have said, is that it's all the same. I need more variety and variety of timbres, dynamics. I love the thing that was the silences in the chords. I think that was really effective, and it's very memorable too, sticky.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
Yep. I think it works really well. I think a variety of what I would say another variety would be dynamic, would be one variety. That's my classical training, my paper music approach. But I know that in the popular idiom, it's much better to have a driving dynamic. But even still, I think that the melody could be, you have a lot of notes, as Nora said, right nearby. I'm wondering if it did either in the chorus or something, you went to a higher range or a lower range, or had things that moved in the chorus. I don't know. That's just my feedback. Anybody else? Anybody? Next, paper
Can I
composer.
share? Can I
What?
share?
Yep, sure.
All right. Okay. Let me do this real quick.
Great job, Nathan. I thought it was really terrific. I'm looking forward to the song.
Okay, so the opening movement about this is kind of someone kind of realizing rain is about to start, and at the very end, you kind of hear the start of the rain. Well, you really can't with the music score playback, but
You can see it.
yeah, I suppose.
Okay. Okay. Comments?
That was crazy. I liked how it was weird, and I liked that. There was all sort of things where I was like, I don't know why this is doing this, but it's kind of weird, and I like it.
Thank you.
Cool.
That's huh?
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's intended as a compliment.
I know. Yeah, I was trying to make it sound weird, so thank you.
I like the way at the beginning that you alternated kind of like moments of total consonance with moments of total dissonance.
Good point.
Cool. Thank you.
The dynamics were very diverse.
Thank you.
I wondered about that. Maybe it's the playback for me. It's all seemed to be the same dynamic, but actually maybe I can't tell. It's hard for me to say. What did you have that as part of your intention, is to have loud, soft?
Yeah. I tended to have a lot of dynamics.
Great. I think it's the playback. I don't think it's your piece. I think it's quick changes. It's the remote control thing you and I talk about frequently, that, somebody's changing the channel and it's a different thing. What else? Anybody else?
Yeah, I really like the moment where it just opened on a fifth, like after your whole like thing with the arpeggios and the guitar. And then all of a sudden it opens to a fifth. I really like that one moment. I mean, like I like the rest of it too, but that moment especially stood out to me. Yeah. And the like descending arpeggios on the guitar felt very percussive, and I think that was mentioned earlier this week. But it almost felt like, instead of like rain gathering, like maybe there's a demon in a tank growing and it's going to come out and like attack us all. Like that was the feeling I got. But someone could feel that way about rain if they really don't like it.
The Wicked Witch of the West. He doesn't like to get wet. AJ? Max? AJ? Max? AJ?
What I really wanted to hear was it ends, and then I wanted to hear the boo doo 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 doo.
At the very end. The guitar thing?
Yeah.
Interesting. I think the thick and thin was the thing that confounded. I didn't know exactly how to think about it, because I don't think it's true that they're all playing all the way through all together. Or maybe they are. I don't really recall. Could you show us the score one more time? Are they playing, all of them playing all the way through? No, they are not.
What do you mean? Do they all play at like all the same time with the entire thing? Or?
And now I see that's not true, because my eyes my ears were deceiving me. What I see is a lot of empty spaces. Keep going, scrolling to the right more, so I can see later in the piece. Yep. So there are long stretches with nothing. I mean, just 3 or 4 parts playing, but there are a lot of sections as well with all of them. And when it's the the randomness of the raindrops come in, they're all playing, but they're all playing very short notes. So the sustained notes and the short notes sort of space each other out. I thought that was really interesting.
Cool.
It wasn't one thing I could say about the thickness or thinness of the piece. It changes.
Cool. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, next.
I could go.
Good. What are we going to be looking at? A score or a DAW? I can't hear you.
I'm doing on my notation software right now.
What are you using?
MuseScore.
Got it. Thank you. And so you consider yourself a paper composer, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any comments?
I it seems a lot like it has like a cohesive form, like A section, B section, whatnot. But I also don't think any section repeats. If I'm not wrong, but it feels very cohesive, I guess, in the way like the moods and the just kind of the overall feel of the piece goes through different sections and returns back to kind of that like original kind of empty thing, and then the drum comes in. Yeah, I liked that.
Good.
I liked the use of foreground, middle ground, background.
Where did you, could you show us the score again, Joe? And do you have any recollection where that was? Tim?
Oh, well, I just kind of like the stuff going on in the background.
Where,
Just like the flutes kind of doing their thing.
the flutes here at this point, where he's pointing at?
Yeah, or like near the end, you know?
Let's go over the end, see where that is. Joe, could you go to the end?
This is the end.
Oh,
Yep.
there we are.
That's what I saw.
I couldn't see the double bar.
So yeah, I kind of like that.
Well, what I see is that the harmony, it modulates, and when it modulates, it doesn't change very often, but when it modulates, it gets your attention. It really pops out at me. At least that's what I heard, was it sort of keeps instruments. It's not quite an ostinato, but there's a long stretch where there's it da da da, and I'm not sure where it's going. There's no a sense that it's just floating. The eagle is flying and it's going along on the jet stream. So I think that's fine. I think that goes on a little long for me in certain sections. And typically at this point in a composition, when in the forming of the piece, I usually say, oh, this could go on longer. But I don't feel that way in this piece. I think it does go a little bit long in certain spots. But that's something I'm just listening to the first time. So I wrote down static, consonant. I'm not sure it's a verse chorus approach. Was that your intention?
A little bit.
Okay, so I wrote down verse chorus, and I didn't quite know for sure if that was right.
Man, Tim is going crazy.
He is. He's on the drums, I think.
No, I think I'm kind of just accidentally started conducting a piece of piano music by Tchaikovsky.
Got it. I would have been part of this, the way you get static. My response of static is there's always do 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 do, and then the other one's going da 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 da. So there's a constant rhythmic changes that you've written into the piece that sort of set up that sort of rocking sound, and it never gets the eagles trying to go higher and trying to work harder to go higher. It's always just sort of coasting on the what is it, the hot air that's coming up off the ground. But
thermal.
Thank you, the
I
thermal.
know that because I read Animorphs.
There we go. There we are. So it feels like it's just floating in the Animorphs. And it's also there's no shape into the architecture of the dynamics. It seems, and I can't tell because it's my speaker, can't tell if it's just the same dynamic all the way through, or if there's any soft sections or any loud sections, but that's what I was listening for.
Hey Randall, can I share some thoughts?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Well, it definitely was soaring. It definitely fit the title. Felt like you're soaring in the sky, which I think was cool. One part that I liked is the little. Can you play that? Can you play like one of those measures again for just a second?
Sure.
Just like one of those, like it does the same sort of thing over and over. Go to the part like later on where it's where there's not a lot of harmonic information besides that melodic bit or something.
Is this just before the ending?
Yeah, just before the ending, or
Mhm.
like or something, like yeah, right at measure like 70. Is that 70? Yeah, play
Right
it at
here.
measure 70.
Yeah.
Play that for a sec. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I like that. I like how it keeps on coming back. One thing that I thought was like what I want it to do at some point is like go like da 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 da, and then have it keep going like this, like da 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 da, like have it keep going up, and that could really like do the sort of like, and then maybe have it like change key at that point, like to like whatever it's leading up to, and then that would really feel like it's going even higher. I don't know. I think that would be cool. But you're the composer.
Yes, I agree with you, Xander. I think that really was one of the things I was looking for, was either a change of register or how thick or thin it was, or dynamics. And those,
Yeah, and especially like using that because that's the part that sticks out to me. I think if you played around with that idea and like
Yep.
tried to extend it, like if you want to,
Mhm.
that could be a great way to like go some to like, I don't know, do whatever Rand it is that Randall's saying you can do.
Okay.
I think it would be cool, is what I mean. It would be a way to make your cool song even cooler.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. We have now the choices we have: Nora, AJ, Max. Okay, who wants to go first of the three? Okay, go ahead, Nora. Let's do it. What do you have? Do you have a notated thing or a dog?
Yeah, it is notated.
Okay, great.
Let me get rid of this. So here we go. It has a grandiose title. I have a grandiose pen name. This is the second credits theme for the movie that does not exist, that goes with this book, only this is the third one, and this goes with the first one. This is just what I have on hand at the moment. Yeah, it's got some vocals. They sound bad in MIDI, but that's okay.
No, it's what do you mean? There's a soprano, and so she has words. Got it. That's a soprano.
Some of them have not been written yet,
I understand that.
so forgive me.
No, that's doesn't matter. I'm just trying to get a sense. This is a song, or is this? This is credit music. Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
So it's kind of in the realm of a rock song with some other influences.
Good. Great. Let's do it.
Okay, I am not sharing sound. Give me a moment.
No problem.
There we go.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
So how did anybody use the form here that we talked about parameters? Did you use that in looking at our music, listening to it?
I thought you used a nice variety of textures.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody else? Yeah, that's a great observation.
There's some interesting rhythms, lots of syncopation, which I liked. I like the chord. I like the chord progression. It's there's a lot of, this really reminds me of video game music. There's a lot of like,
yeah.
This has a lot of like cliches that a lot of video game music has, and I don't mean that in a critical way, but in a way like, by cliche I just mean like trope, a lot of tropes. Yeah. Like the dun 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 dun, that rhythm, that galloping rhythm is very common. So is like the sort of the chord progression, and also the da 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 dun. That's that like walking up the minor scale from the root to the fifth like that is such a common melodic thing in not just in video games but especially in video games. It's one name I've heard to describe that is the 5-finger fanfare, which I like to call it that. So I don't know, I just thought that was that was cool.
Great. And I think I would agree almost every word Xander said. I thought it's a verse chorus, but it's also slightly different than just a straight up verse chorus.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it's a folk feel. Was that
Yeah.
the approach that you were trying to go? I think the fact that it was thin and thick at different times, and you ended thin, really effective, especially on closing credits. As they're the last of the names are scrolling up, and then this is brought to you by whoever the producers are. I thought that was good. A lot of variety in loud and soft, and tended to be bright, and that might be my playback. But the one thing I had to say that maybe, and it was tended to be a high and bright, and it might be the playback. I was not looking entirely all the way through, but one thing I did look very closely at, two things. One, I really especially like the modulation in your piece. You just brought it up a step, and that's great. And the second thing is you are writing right-hand piano accompaniment right on top of the voices, exactly on top of them. Don't do that. They won't be able to hear the words. You got to move them out of the right hand cannot be on top, playing chords on top of the voices. Move them out of the way. Make it thinner and make it higher or lower. But don't, it's literally, you've got to cut out a space just for the voices to be able to be heard.
Yeah, I talked to Sarah about that today, actually. And the voices here are like, the words are nonsense, basically. They don't mean anything. And they're intended as part of the accompaniment. So I don't know, do you still think that I should move the piano or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, get into practice. If otherwise the voices are just, they can be la la la, and that might be something like the Daphne and Chloe by it's an orchestral color, really. Mm-hmm. But you have so much action, and it's going along in a folk harmonic motion that I kept leaning in, saying, "What are they saying?" And you got the piano playing closed chords right on top of the same notes that the singers are doing. Mm-hmm. Don't do that.
Okay.
Just move it up an octave. Then that would solve it.
Got it.
Okay.
I like how every instrument has its part. They're all working together very, very well. Like none of them kind of invade in the other space, I guess, except for the piano chords. But there are no words here yet, anyways. But yeah, like the guitar and voice especially alternate and kind of play off of each other very well.
Yeah.
I ended with a negative. I should not have done that, but that's when I went up my list. That's what the thing was at the top of the list. Voices are a particular thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, guys. AJ, you should go next because we were just talking about voices. Thank you very much, Nora. I think that's a really nice start, and it's more than a start. You're almost there.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah.
You're very close. What instruments are you going to have play for you?
Keyboard, someone with a hand drum, guitar, bass. I think I had one more. Oh yeah, flute. And then
Flute.
I'm going to do all the vocals. So
Great. And you're going to make up words on the spot?
no, I'm going to write those possibly later tonight.
Good. You got something to do. That's good. All right, AJ, would you set this up for us, please?
I am writing a song cycle exploring mental illness, and this is the final movement of the 19 movement song cycle. The poem is by Emily Dickinson that I'm setting, and in the middle of it, it changes dramatically into a new, for this movement, a new melodic idea, but that's taken from the prelude to sort of end it how it began.
Great. Let's go.
You hear it?
Wow, that was awesome.
That was great.
Great melody, great, like when it went into the minor section, that was great. Wow.
Great
love
everything.
I love that choice of a poem for like the way to close off something talking about mental illness. Like that's just and the melody is great and just yeah, that I really liked that.
Thank you.
I really liked how you had kind of the viola play the lower like bass part while the cello and violin kind of played the melody. And I also
Octaves
kind
away.
of like how what I kind of got from the poem and from your music was like, I'm glad that if I can stop all this stuff from happening, I'll be happy. And it's like the very beginning, it's kind of trying to say it's happy, I guess, but meaningful. Then in the minor section, you explain why it's meaningful.
Thank you.
I really liked when you go back to the theme from the prelude, how and maybe this was also happening in the prelude, I don't quite remember, but you've got the violin doing the melody and then the other three strings doing accompaniment type things, and they're all doing something different, but it all creates one texture. I thought that was really cool. And also as a classically trained singer, it's kind of honestly a pain to find modern art song that I actually want to sing. But I listened to this and I'm like, wow, that's a wonderful melody. But it also, it doesn't sound like classical era, romantic era type thing. It sounds very modern, but it also sounds singable and lovely and fun. Fun is maybe not the right word, but like fun to sing, enjoyable to sing. So yeah, I think you got like a good piece for singers as well.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Musically satisfying. I'm curious as to why you chose to have the beginning part be in like 15/8 and like odd time signatures of like what's your intention with that?
Honestly, that's just the way the melody came to me, and then because I tried it in different time signatures and it fit the best in 15/8.
Yeah, so you liked it the best that way.
Mm-hmm. Because I was originally not wanting to use it because it's an odd one.
You mean the poem?
No, the time signature.
Maybe I'm just not as like used to odd time signatures, but at the beginning, at first, the odd time signature put me off a little bit. But overall I really liked the piece, so I don't know if it's really that bad of a criticism or like a thing about it. I don't know. Really, that's just how it affected me at first, but I don't know. I overall really like it though.
Thank you.
Nathan, possibly Joe.
I kind of felt differently about the odd time signatures. I thought you did them very cleverly because until I had looked at the sheet, I did not notice that we were in 15/8. Yeah, it felt very...
Maybe I should just listen to it again.
It felt very natural to me, at least, the progression of the melody through that. Nothing felt off. It didn't feel like you had lost a beat or gained one somewhere. And kind of on the rhythm train, the kind of second section of it with the violin, I really liked
that thing.
Yeah, the kind of, not syncopation, but just kind of the way you varied those segments to create a different feel, even with like just the same melodic line. It was very nice.
Thank you.
Did you have a reason for those little ornamented things, the trills or bird calls or whatever they were? What?
Because she talks about helping a robin into the nest.
Say it again.
That's exactly what it made me think of. Like when the lyrics came, I was like, oh, that's what this sounds like. I liked that part.
Thank you.
And about like the 15/8 thing, maybe I just was looking at the sheet music and I saw 15/8, and that just made my brain go, what's this? But maybe like it's maybe if I listened to it again, I would. I don't know. In any case, good job.
Is 15/8 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? That feel da 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 da.
2 plus 3.
Yeah, but they're bigger chunks of notes.
Or no.
Yeah. Okay. Joe and Max?
It was very texturized and articulate.
Thank you.
I like the fact that when the singer came in, all of the parts dropped down out of the range of the singer. Who told you to do that? That's a brilliant suggestion. No, I thought that was really, it's going to be easier to hear the words. And I think they mean a great deal at this point, especially.
Mhm.
At this point, especially. You've had a 45-minute thing or whatever it is, however long it is. Why are we here? What happened? What's going on? What's going to happen now? So it's really important to hear the words. Yeah. Any other comments? Going to go to the last one would be Max. Are you ready to show us something?
Sure.
Great. Thanks, Mandy. That was, I remember it. It's better than I remember, which is a good thing.
Yes, I made some changes.
It's better. The notation on the 15/8 is still not right. But we'll talk about that later. Okay. Comments on the grid, if you can.
I was just going to say, I really like the choice of instrumentation. It's very unique and creates that sort of like wide separation, which is a very interesting color.
That's a good point.
It was thin, but yet in very melodic.
Interesting. What could it be? Could it be thick and melodic and then thin and melodic? Is that what you're saying? This was a thin melodic tune.
Yes.
Got it.
I thought it was really like sort of funny. Not that it was bad, but like that it was good and like it had a sense of humor, which I liked. It really has a personality, especially with that really unique ensemble.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a really like a fun piece, fun melody. It just like makes you smile listening to it. And I'm looking on the sheet with like the smooth versus jagged kind of thing.
Mhm.
And there are parts of that were really jagged and parts that were more smooth. And looking at it with all the different time signatures and like accidentals, I would have just like glancing at the score, thought it would be a lot more like, I don't know, discordant or jagged or hard to follow or like, you know, more crunchy. But it was a surprise, and it was a very pleasant surprise.
Oh, that's a very nice compliment.
Yeah, on the topic of surprises, I really liked the transition into swing with the alternating 2/4 and 3/4. Felt very natural.
Yeah.
And then back into the swinging.
What did
That's
anybody notice the it suddenly goes out of time? It was going along in 5/8 and then or whatever 3. It was swinging, and then it suddenly did something completely different. Did that? What was your response to that? Did you notice it?
Yeah, so that was the swinging section.
Well, it suddenly goes into this the bass is tremolo, and then there's this long clarinet thing.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, it's all piccolo, but it's more of like a recitative feel. Does anybody know what recitative is? Recitative is just sort of like spoken words, and it's it's a It's like me putting this, what I'm saying now, into music. It's declamatory in some way. Sorry, Nathan, go ahead.
Yeah, I liked that part. I thought it didn't feel as out of place as it looked on the sheet. Which I say could be said a lot about that piece. Like when you see the weird time signatures, the alternation between swing and not swing, it shouldn't work, but it does.
It does, yeah. Tim, you have anything?
I kind of like the bass accompany the flute, and I have to go now. So bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye, Tim. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you. And Max, oh, Joe, I was trying, when he left, Joe, who I faced, oh, that was Joe, moved up there. Okay, good. Joe.
It had concrete sounds, but yet it was thin, and the register difference gave it, as Xander said, kind of a humorous sound.
Yeah. You know, Max is studying with me, and we talk about the 7 elements of comedy. And I'll tell, because I'm trying to sell this idea of the elements of comedy, but extreme, repetition, surprise are the 3 things that are there's the 4 other things, but those 3 really are central to the idea of how to sell, how to make it funny, So the fact that you noticed that it was supposed to be funny is success. That's a success right there. So good job, Max. I still think you should go longer on a couple of places, but that's me. Okay, are we done? I'm going to play, whether you're here or not, I'm going to play the anatomy of a song by Prince that was in the New York Times today. It's fantastic. It talks about how to analyze music, how he analyzed this music in the process of creating it. I think being articulate and self-aware to your music is the same thing that you were doing for each other when we were talking about each of the pieces, is starting to look at these parameters of sound and coming up with other things that aren't on the list. And being articulate about it means that you recognize it, and knowing that you recognize it is also that self-awareness. You're becoming self-aware about your own music and developing new processes to judge whether you're doing what you intended to do. And Nora, you should look at the beginning of this. We're going to put it up on YouTube later. So thank you, all of you, for what work you've done this week so far. You have a lot further to go. I can say with a smile on my face and a bounce in my step, but you've got more to go.
You're not the one that has to compose it.
That is correct.
You just smile and laugh.
That's why I can smile. You have a lot to do. Good luck with that.
So you're virtually practicing my part.
Yeah, and I think that you have some hard parts that are written for the viola.
Kind of a wicked part.
It is. And Nathan, I'm really looking forward to Brandon's addition to your piece. It's going to knock him off.
Me too, so much.
And Joe, what is it? Who's playing your piece? Is that Louisa?
Yes.
And is there anyone else playing?
I think Bob Adney might play the timpani part.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? The three kettle drums and then cranking it up and all that stuff. Yeah. That'll be good. Nora,
I fixed that low E.
Fantastic, thank you. Or was it E flat?
Yes, it was E flat.
Yeah, there you go. Mandy,
Bring it up an octave.
Mandy, I know what you're doing. Nora, you've got a small orchestra working for you. Max, you're off and running. Keep making improvements. Xander, I think nailed it. I thought you had a great description of what the scene was. It sounded really, really effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I actually just got a bit more done on it just while we've been talking here. Like it's funny, like seeing other people's like stuff just kind of like made me feel good and motivated me to just do a couple things. So that's great.
And that's what it's for. That is literally what we're trying to do.
I liked that. Thank you.
it was a pleasure to hear your comments about this. You're establishing an early practice about how to listen to music critically and specifically and articulately. That's what that list of the parameters of music, that's all it is. I'm going to start here in a few minutes, or in just a few seconds, with this. With this this video of the anatomy of a song. It's sign of the times, which is a sort of a late song in Prince's oeuvre, or his work. So here we go. You are welcome to go whenever you want to. I'm going to go ahead and play the whole darn thing. It's about 9 minutes, something like that. And I would encourage you to watch, but it's your call. Let me get this over here. Boom. There we go. All right, hold on. There we go. Boom.
On time muscle phone, but I'm not a speech maker, so I'll do what I do best.
Yeah, y'all wanna dance is cool. Fancy skinny man died of a big disease with a little name. By chance his girlfriend came across a needle and soon she did the same.
How you doing, man? You turn my light on.
There you go.
Okay, there we go.
Tell me how you met Prince.
The phone rings. It's his secretary. She's like, hold on. And I'm like, hold on for who? Next thing I hear, Levi, you want to be in my band? And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Hello.
Hi. Hang on a second. Let me turn you up. I think it was his 24th birthday. And I hear click, 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 click. Jumps over the couch, sits right down next to me, and whispers in my ear, "Did you dream about me last night?" I mean, he was incredibly charming. He smelled beautiful. It was just everything, all about it was like, okay, I think you're hooking me in.
Who were you to Prince?
Well, I know if he were answering that question, he'd say something funny.
How are you feeling tonight?
I feel with my hands, Martha.
But I'm not as witty. So I was hired as his audio technician in 1983. Prince was looking for a tech. He was coming off the 1999 tour. I was with him nearly every day for 4 years because if he was awake, he wanted to have a musical instrument in his hands. And if he had an instrument in his hands, he wanted to be recording.
This particular time and writing Sign of the Times, there was a lot of input coming at him. There was an earthquake in Los Angeles.
My goodness, a live earthquake right here.
He didn't like that kind of stuff, you know. He liked to be in control. That was definitely being out of control. Also, in the front cover of the LA Times, there was the AIDS epidemic. It talked about, you know, in France, they were trying to come up with a vaccine, and it hit him so hard.
In France, a skinny man died of a big disease with a little name. By chance, his girlfriend came across a needle and soon she did the same.
There was gang violence in LA.
Another guy hit over there, too.
At home, there were 17-year-old boys and their idea of fun is being in a gang called the Disciples, high on crack, toting a machine gun.
The Challenger had exploded.
We will never forget you.
Sitting on when a rocket ship explodes, and everybody still wants to fly.
This was all coming at him, and he felt it was apocalyptic.
If you look at the pop charts from those years, that didn't sound like Sign of the Times, right?
It doesn't sound like new wave. It doesn't obviously sound like hip hop. It doesn't sound like pop. Right? It's not something you can dance to. To me, it's kind of like this Prince that is pivoting away from having to prove himself any longer with the Rolling Stone rock radio set. Yes, I can do a Neil Schon Journey guitar solo and turn it completely inside out, and it becomes Purple Rain. Purple Rain, Purple Rain. Take rock back for Black folks. And now I'm going to show you that I can also cross over to certain kinds of digital musics.
So when Prince brings the song to the studio, how does he set it up? Does he say anything to you?
His favorite way to work was to say nothing at all. I would have everything set up so that he could work silently. Prince didn't talk much. He was not an especially social human being.
How many years ago did you make these demos and then have offers on them?
The world came to him, and then he expressed what he had experienced to you through the music.
He's sitting there. I'm at the console, and he's next to me at the Fairlight.
The Fairlight computer musical instrument. It's $26,000 worth of electronic wizardry.
It's more than a synthesizer and sampler. It was a very expensive digital engine. Sounds built into it. On the song Sign of the Times, he played all of the instruments on it. You can hear that bass line is played on his fingers. That's a keyboard instrument. As he's sitting at the Fairlight, he's moving from instrument to instrument to instrument. He had a watchmaker's knack for understanding how music worked and how to get it to work with the fewest possible parts.
The other thing you have to remember with Prince is every time you listen to a song, it's telling a story. Even if he wasn't singing, you could just listen to the music and feel that song would be about what it's talking about.
Prince's sessions were notoriously long. Often it'd be 24 hours, and he'd take a break, maybe shoot some basketball. And he also had a sweet tooth, so every now and then he'd ask us to send a runner down to get a big lemon cake. After we recorded the Fairlight onto analog tape, we'd make a cassette of it. He'd take it out to the car, and then he'd write melody and the lyrics and then come back in and finish the song. Prince always did his vocals alone. We would set up his vocal mic, then leave the room. He didn't want an engineer between him and that audience. He wanted to just sing to his listeners.
Silly no, when a rocket ship explodes,
you'd be on the other side of that door.
And everybody still wants to fly.
You'd hear those soul preacher screams, and you'd know, oh, this is going to be one of those that just has me on my knees.
Oh, at times.
When the vocal was done, saying what it had to say, that's when the guitar could take over for the vocal. And say the same thing the vocal said, but with short melodic phrases. Every single day when we recorded, I had the feeling of, oh, this is going to be great. Wait till people hear this.
When he comes back with Sign of the Times, how does he present it to you?
In the car. You guys want to come in the car and hear what we did? So we all pile in the back of the car, and he turns it on.
He just pops in a cassette?
Pops in the cassette. We were like, woo! Yeah! You know, like, that's how we always were. Like, it's great. He was always very cool.
Prince's fans, they like to dance and stuff, but they still want to be intelligent. Like, we can have some fun, but can we talk about something that actually means something instead of your eyeliner and you got a big ass?
What's really interesting to me is that, he basically spends 4 minutes or whatever it is cataloging the ills of the world, and then his solution is let's go get married and have a baby.
Right. Well, at the end of the day, when you've got nothing else, you do have the most important thing is love. He always came down to who was he loving and who was loving him, that he could then be the guy he felt he needed to be.
It's very hard to hear the song Sign of the Times and not think of health crises, political crises that we have going on now. Like, what do you think Prince would have made of 2020?
I don't think Prince was preoccupied with world events for their own sake. I don't think he would have been the kind of man who would write a letter to the editor of his local newspaper. And he didn't want to see foolish people ruin it for everyone.
There's a melancholia to it that matches 2020. You know, that is the feeling for 2020. But it also challenges us to think about how long we've been on the battlefield and the ways that the music itself can provide us with knowledge to position ourselves for thinking about the future. We are the song's futurity, and so it's our responsibility now to keep building forward from what Prince gave us.
Why are you giving interviews and refusing to speak? Why? And don't tell me you lost your voice, because I heard you singing 5 minutes ago. Tonight. But couldn't you, like, sing your answers? I mean, I just don't understand why you won't speak. Because it's like that, and that's the way it is.
There you go. I think he's amazing.
That was super cool.
It's amazing. We all aspire to do something like that. And that's, I'm not ready to do a 24-hour recording session, but it's you can get a lot done in 24 hours. Nora, Xander, Nathan, good luck.
Yeah, I bet.
So I appreciate all your time today. We do not have any sessions tomorrow except the upload of your files. I'm going to be there at 7 o'clock. I'll be there at 6 o'clock. So if you have anything to come forward and have questions about, please let me know. I'll be on the Zoom session. I'm going to start one up and I'll share that on the calendar. Okay.
Yeah. So to be clear, so what we need to upload tomorrow is the part for the performer to play along with.
That's correct. Along with the BPM, don't forget that.
And the BPM and sheet music or whatever.
And if you have any tracks that would be helpful to play along with, so that they could understand where the parts fit, that'd be helpful too. That makes sense?
Should those tracks, for them to play along with, should those tracks have their part in it?
No.
No.
Well, you can. You can do that too, because they can silence that, mute that, or they can play along with it. I remember doing AJ's string quartet last year, having the cello part play. I could play along with the cello part, and it made it way easier and went faster. It was really fantastic.
Okay.
We'll be there at 6 o'clock. I'm going to have you, Laura, who's a techie guy who can help you, and Eric will be there at 6 o'clock as well.
For mine, I have the click track, and I do the cello only, everyone but the cello, and then the whole thing.
Yeah.
So so everybody got 5 parts: the score, the part, and then the 3 recordings.
Yeah, that's great. Your own part, without your own part, and everybody's part. That's great. Thank you very much, guys.
And I talked to Maria tonight, so.
She's gone. She's good?
Mm-hmm.
That's the singer who's going to do the premiere. So she'll be on the track when we do the track drop on Sunday. Great. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Randall.
Thank you, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.